stories from around the corner.
And around the country.
You're listening to All the Best.
Proudly supported by the Art Gallery of New South Wales.
You're listening to All the Best from FBI Radio 94.5. I'm Kwame Slusher. This week we're adopting a sustainability mindset as we listen to more stories from students from the University of Melbourne. But before we get into this week's stories, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that I'm recording from stolen and Gadigal land, and pay my respect to Gadigal elders past and present, and also recognize that the area where FBI Radio is situated, Redfern, has long been a place of storytelling, strength, resistance, and resilience for First Nations communities. And I also want to recognize the elders past and present of all the lands where the stories in this episode were made. In this week's episode, we continue with stories from the students at the University of Melbourne and explore the idea of having a sustainability mindset, not just when it comes to the environment around us, but also when it comes to activities that bring communities together or online platforms that try to divide us. In our first story, we examine the meaning of life, or rather, whether there's any meaning at all.
We are entering the age of crisis. The planet keeps warming, wars keeps going, minorities continue to face oppressions. And we have always been told to find different meanings in life. Meanings from schools, meanings from jobs, and meanings from relationships. When the world falls apart, what if nothing matters? As I've grown older, I start to realize how much things is out of our control, especially when I read the news and see all the chaos and uncertainty in the world. I feel disappointed and sometimes powerless. So I ask my friends what they think about the world we are in.
It's different, things have definitely changed.
I think the world is a very scary place today. I think it's very hard to find the goodness in life sometimes. It actually keeps me from wanting to have kids because I don't want to bring them into a world that is this horrible.
It's we're sitting right here in, I think, South Lawn. Yeah, it looks beautiful, it looks nice, but if you ask anyone else around the world, they'll give you a different answer.
I am intentionally avoiding it because there is indeed so many problems around the world. We just can't solve all of them. I think it's good enough for us to focus on our own.
A recent reports found that the life satisfaction and happiness among young people decline, and researchers said more are struggling with percepting their own character and meaning in life. Sometimes I'm wondering why we need to care so much. Why can't we just ignore them? Associate Professor Justin Clemens at the University of Melbourne said this can be a nihilistic idea.
Nihilist is the Roman word for nothing, and so nihilism is generally understood as a kind of hopelessness in the face of the nothingness of existence.
And young people in 19th century already have a similar thoughts.
They're in highly developed industrial civilizations. Things move very, very fast. As Karl Marx says in the Communist Manifesto, all that is solid melts into air. People lose ancestral beliefs, are still there, but you're fighting with your parents, you're fighting with your family, you're fighting with your culture, you're fighting with history. The new is sweeping everything away. And everyone feels without signposts. They don't know which way to go. There's no clear direction. And wherever you look, there seems to be chaos, meaninglessness, and so on.
After hundreds of years, more young people returning to nihilism.
They're too old to just be dependent on their parents. At the same time, too young to be completely independent. In the world that they're in, the jobs look terrible, the situation looks terrible, the environment looks terrible, politics looks terrible, other people look terrible. What are you going to do?
When I know more and more injustice, and I'm unable to change all of this, I feel even more pessimistic and sad.
There's a feeling of hopelessness, helplessness, rage, disaster, and just, I guess, a general sense of impotence.
Being meaningless, is this a good way for young people like us to respond or resist all the chaos?
Well, I think it's a bit of a blank attitude that you have no meaning in life.
I don't think that you can pretend that there is any meaning that ascribes to everybody. I think it's very personal and you have to make it yourself.
And if everyone were nihilists, what would the world be?
Well, it's already a chaos, guys. It's already a nihilist. If everyone becomes a nihilist, maybe the opposite would happen.
For nihilists, life is meaningless, but it doesn't really mean pessimistic. Perhaps we can try to embrace the freedom of being meaningless, freedom to create your own meaning and purpose in life, and take the responsibility to shape your own destiny.
Nothingness is also important as well. If you don't look at the nothing, you won't know or do anything real, right? Don't be caught in the illusion, right?
Myself is not a religious person, so maybe, because I was thinking maybe some other religion will create a sense of purpose in your life once you're born. But for me, I think the purpose of life is more of looking for something you want to do. The process of finding purpose can be also very meaningful.
Instead of following the meanings others told you to, follow your hearts. Find your own positions in all the chaos.
I think that you can always find the beauty in life.
You're going to have a different view of the world. You're going to see the world as somewhere like you don't want to be in.
Think a bit better, think a bit harder, think a bit differently, think otherwise.
You're listening to All the Best on FBI Radio 94.5. My name is Kwame Slasher, and that story was produced by Tin Yang Wong, and the supervising producer was Thomas Phillips. So, how do you feel about possums? In our next story, we are challenged to reconsider the way we see our cities and protect the native species that live within them.
Do you know what this sound is? When I heard it, I was scared. I don't know what it is. It was a Saturday night when I went for a walk in the Carlton Garden, and I looked around to find who made it. Then, I saw a possum sleeping in the tree and snoring. It was my first time seeing a possum, so it made me stop and think, who really lives in this city? Come with me and a little friend on a journey to learn more about possums.
Hi, I'm a possum. I'm sorry I scared you.
That's okay. It's just so quiet here that the sudden noise scared me. But you look so cute.
I'm glad you like me, and I hope I can be a friend and be friends with other humans too. So I've always wanted to know, what do humans think of me? Do humans like me? What do they think of me?
I asked the possum to follow me secretly, and we go to ask some people in the garden if they have seen a possum before and what their first impressions of them are.
No, I thought they're disgusting, to be honest.
Oh, really? You think we are disgusting?
I just thought it was very cute.
Wow, she likes me.
We also ask people, do you think possums should be considered part of the city?
I think even though I find them disgusting, I think they're part of the community and they should be welcomed here.
Yes, of course. They belong here.
See? There are lots of people who like you. Although there may be some people who don't like you as much as others, everyone is willing to be neighbors with you. To let the possum know that someone is fighting for them to live in the city, we talked to Dr. Kelly Soons, who is a conservation biologist and is working on a project that builds road bridges to help possums cross roads.
When I started my career, I thought I would be out in the wilderness, saving the rainforest or the desert or somewhere romantic. But I noticed as I was studying and in the places that I lived, there were lots of animals and plants living all around us, and they really needed a bit of help. And so I liked this idea that we can have nature all around us.
Dr. Soons told me she has always been attracted to cute, fluffy animals.
Like me!
And found possum really fun to watch. She likes that we can find them in our cities and towns. Here is Dr. Soons on a memorable encounter she had with many possums.
I remember being in a garden in Brisbane, and I heard this very strange scampering and chuckling behind me, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And we turned around, and sure enough, there was a brush-tailed possum following along behind us. We looked around again a few minutes later, and there were 12 possums following us. And by the time we got to the other side of the park, there were 20 different brush-tailed possums that had just started following us through this urban park.
It's not always easy for wildlife living in cities. So some people, represented by Dr. Soons, are struggling to build a better urban environment for wildlife. Dr. Soons introduced the Road Bridges project to us.
The project to build bridges to help possums cross roads came about because we understood that possums move about in trees, and when there's a really big gap between two trees, it's really hard for them to get from one place to the other. And when that really big gap is full of traffic, it becomes even harder.
Dr. Sun said they build these road bridges. It's like a road ladder crossroads in northeast Victoria.
And we tried to place them in areas where we knew animals would want to cross. We found that as they were using the bridges, their gene flow increased. So we knew that the possums were reconnecting their populations across the road. And these rope bridges are being used all over Australia now. They're becoming more common in our cities and towns, which I think is really wonderful.
The possum is thrilled to hear this and then asked,
"So the city will be better for us in the future as well?"
Possum, I think all cities should be for you as well. I promise I'm working very hard to try and make the city safer for you. I'm going to build you some more rope bridges and some more safe houses, and even plant some more of the lovely native trees that you like so that you stop eating my neighbour's roses.
Finally, Dr. Sun told me it was time for us to change the way we view the city.
If we don't change the way that we develop and build our cities, we will lose more species, and we'll start to see more and more urban landscapes that have no nature in them. I think we need to do is be really careful and intentional with how we develop things, to consider species more than just humans in the way that we build our cities, and make sure that we are making space for nature to live alongside us.
This is All the Best on FBI Radio 94.5, and I'm Kwame Slusher. That story was produced by Pei Yao Shu, and the supervising producer was Persephone Waxman. In our next story, we are looking at the rising trend of conservative ideology and misogyny amongst Gen Z.
As a young woman in Australia with a habit of scrolling online, I found an undeniable trend of conservatism, misogyny, and inceldom in a lot of young men.
Just because you're offended, it doesn't mean that you're wrong.
I'm Randy from HR. You know what's wrong with this country? Too many sissies and whinging bitches.
On the other side of the spectrum, I've seen many young women lean towards more progressive feminist ideologies.
Stabbed 49 times. Women have not been free for all that long. Like, we have not been autonomous for all that long.
Kill women. Stop telling women how they should be feeling, or how they is a
Birth rates are plummeting across the world. Gen Z is having less sex than any previous generation. So, is the gender divide in young people increasing? And does this distinct separation in ideologies present an existential threat to humanity?
In democracies worldwide, a political gender war is intensifying among Gen Z voters.
Gone the opposite way. Adult Gen Zers are having less sex and staying virgins
Australia's
longer
fertility
than
rate has
any
dropped down to
generation
just
before them at their
1.6,
age.
well below the 2.1 needed to maintain population.
Dr. J. Daniel Thompson is a senior lecturer at RMIT in professional communications. Much of his work has looked at digital hostility and how we can foster ethical online communication.
There is an issue with young men being drawn into incel cultures and the far right. This has been an issue for some time. And there can be a number of reasons for this. I do think that young men in particular, we're all feeling disenfranchisement, but young men in particular, the kinds of powerful roles their fathers and grandfathers had as homeowners, as providers for the family, with secure employment, are no longer there for them. Combine this with internet affordances such as social media platforms, influencers such as Joe Rogan, such as Andrew Tate, and the list goes on, provide a kind of role model for some of these young men. They're aspirational, they're go-getters, they're athletic. They provide simplistic and often highly offensive, hostile I should say, responses to complex social problems.
Mira, who goes by Miffy online, makes feminist content on TikTok under the handle of FemCellVictim.
I think that women's radical beliefs are a direct result of seeing misogyny become so much more prevalent. I think that men feel massively empowered online, one, because they can hide behind faceless accounts and, they're encouraged by the other comments that they're seeing. I think the internet has had a huge part to play in that, specifically with Elon Musk and the way that he has altered the Twitter algorithm to become this far-right slot machine. If you create a Twitter account as a man and you just start scrolling, it's going to be far-right content.
This hostility we see on the internet isn't necessarily totally emblematic of how young men think. People are often more aggressive in digital spaces.
It's called the disinhibition factor, that when you're online, when you're not facing the person, like, that humanises them in a way that you can't do online. And that has given a sense of social licence to those individuals who may not see themselves as abusive.
The online disinhibition effect also greatly impacts how we combat this issue.
Anything that I say is going to have very little meaning to these men that I don't know. I think it's way more powerful to teach women how to speak up about these issues, how to articulate these issues, and then have them be the ones that teach and inform the men in their lives. And I know that feels because it feels like you're putting a lot of work on women, but unfortunately we do have to do the work to escape our own oppression.
Whilst there may not be any cliched happy ending in sight, not all online communities have fostered evil environments of hatred and bigotry. It's helped many women realise they can be more than fine on their own, which is definitely a good thing.
You know, the internet has done so many horrible things, but I think it's also allowed women to see other women being happy, being single, being happy living in community with their friends. It's a narrative that the media has really tried to demonise. The whole crazy cat lady thing is just essentially like, wow, look at this woman, how dare she be happy and alone. There are all these tropes to demonise and, degrade women for not centering their lives around men. And I think social media is giving women a chance to see that it's not a bad thing. You can be perfectly happy, and that's something to rejoice about. That's something to enjoy.
You're listening to FBI Radio 94.5. My name is Kwame Slasher. That story was produced by Ava Morrison. The supervising producer was Thomas Phillips. So, I have a few tattoos, and honestly, I was so focused on the pain that I never really thought about whether the process was sustainable or not. But Prashida takes us onto the streets of Melbourne, where tattoo artists are trying to be sustainable in the face of strict health regulations.
I would say the most sustainable form of tattooing wouldn't pass the City Council health regulations, and that would be going to Borneo and getting a traditional tattoo. I think that would be the most sustainable thing.
In Melbourne's buzzing tattoo scene, the epicenter of Australia's ink culture, artists are grappling with an uncomfortable truth. The safer their practices become, the more wasteful they are. The tattoo industry, while a small part of the global economy, is one of the most wasteful in terms of single-use plastic and disposable materials, with a significant reliance on non-recyclable waste. Alex has been tattooing for 3 years. Like many newer artists, sustainability was on his radar from day one.
Sustainability in the tattoo industry is a concern of all of us, but it comes second nature to things like health concerns.
For Alex, the industry is heading in the right direction.
I think it's trying to get more sustainable, and I think that comes down to our supply companies giving us biodegradable options for things like plastic wraps and razors and all of that kind of stuff.
It's a view shared by some of his environmentally conscious clients, like Emma, a 23-year-old science student who's been researching sustainable tattoo practices.
I actually spent a week researching before getting my first tattoo. I wanted to make sure the ink was vegan and that the studio was using biodegradable supply where possible. I even bought my own aftercare products because I knew they would be plastic-free.
We're already seeing things like bed covers, and there being alternatives to just Glad wrap, which is cool, and I think it definitely will improve.
But not everyone in the industry shares Alex's optimism. Jimmy has been tattooing for a decade longer than Alex. When I asked him the same question about industry sustainability, his answer was starkly different. Do you think tattooing as an industry has gotten more sustainable?
I would say much less.
Jimmy's watched the industry transform. What he's seen is a shift away from reusable equipment towards single-use everything.
In the 80s and 90s, even though that wasn't a conversation people were talking about, it was definitely a thing. Tattooing was more sustainable back then, for sure. As the industry's moved into wireless technology, and the councils love it. They love single-use disposable plastics. They don't love autoclaves. They don't love reusable anything.
The change has been driven by health regulation. The same rules that protect clients are now creating mountains of waste.
The waste is a tricky one because it needs to be taken away by a clinical waste disposal company. and that's all incinerated.
Even clients like Emma are starting to understand the complexity.
When I got my second tattoo, I watched them unwrap so much plastic. The machine, the bed, every single needle and ink cap. I asked if there were alternatives and they explained it's all mandated for my safety.
Here is Alex again.
There is no shortcut there that can really be done, but I'm interested to see what the future would be.
Both artists agree they can't compromise client safety for sustainability, but they're not giving up.
You just buy from suppliers that you trust and do research in terms of the equipment that you're using.
Well, I'm trying out a few different things at the moment with different sorts of tubes. So there's a new innovation in the market, which is a disposable steel tube as opposed to a plastic one.
The solution, they say, lies with innovation from suppliers and conscious choices from consumers.
If there are solutions to problems that we have, if there are options out there, tattooers as a whole usually are pretty supportive of that kind of thing.
I have started asking different questions now, not just is the ink vegan, but what supply do you use and are you trying new sustainable products as they come out? I want to support the artists who are actually making an effort.
As far as what we can do, we try, but we're mandated to use single-use disposable, quite often plastic instruments for every person. There's a line that needs to be respected on both sides, and we can only do our best within the guides that we're given.
In this age of climate crisis and adaptation, even Melbourne's tattoo artists are navigating the tension between progress and preservation. They're mandated to prioritize safety, but the industry hasn't given up on finding sustainable solutions.
I think my generation expect better. We're not going to stop getting tattooed, but we want the industry to keep evolving. And if that's mean paying a bit more for biodegradable supply or supporting innovative artists, that's what we do.
Get tattooed, it's fun. We all just try and do our best. Don't support companies that pretend to be sustainable and greenwash you. Look up what they're doing behind the scenes and make your informed choice. You know, be an intelligent consumer, vote with your dollar.
You're listening to All the Best on FBI Radio 94.5 with me, Kwame Slusher, and that story you just heard was produced by Prashida Shah, and the supervising producer was Thomas Phillips. In our final story, Chuk Lam Lee takes us to an urban farm in Melbourne called Sky Farm that does more than just feed people, but also builds connections in communities.
It's a crisp morning in Melbourne CBD. Just a block away, traffic views on Flinders Street. But up here, it's a different road. Rows of leafy green stretch across a rooftop bathed in sunlight. The scenes of pursuit fills the air.
Welcome to Sky Farm. We had this rooftop that we could see in the heart of Melbourne that we just thought would be an absolutely amazing space for an urban farm. So we got in contact with the Melbourne Convention Centre and had a chat to them about the rooftop, and they said yes.
Just a few years ago, this rooftop was a lifeless car park. Now, it grows tons of produce, supports food relief charities, and it's all grown in modular food cubes, right in the city centre.
You can look to things that are sort of previously unused, almost like dead space. So things like unused park space, car parks, rooftops, downside of your house, an ugly fence, just literally anywhere where you've got enough space, enough sunshine and access to a water point, you can start to make it productive.
Urban farming may seem small, but it's growing in response to something big: climate change and food insecurity.
There's about 3.5 million households in Australia facing some sort of food insecurity. So everyone's really feeling the squeeze at the supermarket. And I definitely think that urban farming and creating community is really important for facing those efforts.
Sarah believes plants and people are part of the solution.
I think a lot of those climate-based solutions, we're going to be looking back to nature. We're going to be looking back to plants and urban cooling and green infrastructure to solve a lot of those issues with climate change. The food that we grow, the food that we eat is going to become an important part of that solution.
For Dario, a former organic farmer from Argentina, Sky Farm brings back something deeply familiar.
Sometimes it happens to me that I'm working here in the middle of the tall buildings. I'm so focused on the soil, on the crops, on the pest. I forgot that I'm in the middle of the city. I have that feeling of being again in Patagonia, in my farm.
Sky Farm isn't just a rooftop garden. It's a collaboration, a food source, and a community hub.
To have the possibility to share this knowledge with the ones who are visiting in the Sky Farm, also learning from them, because everyone is building new knowledge from their own experience, and we can share a lot of knowledge and build up big and good knowledge finally for everyone.
I love to show people this plant because not everyone knows what it is. And, you know, we're also sitting next to broccoli, and some people are like, I didn't know that's how a broccoli grew. You talk about the plant, you talk about how to grow it, how to eat it, how to share it, and you're really, really creating this beautiful sense of community that we're often quite disconnected from where our food comes from. So we really need spaces like Melbourne Sky Farm and all these places that we can retrofit and share to create a space to gather, a space to chat, a space to share our answers on climate change, what we're working on. We just need to come together and really talk. Those are going to go quick?
Absolutely.
Because radishes do that?
Yes, in 1 month they will be
harvested,
beaten.
These shared green spaces create more than vegetables. They create something we are all craving.
People are very lonely, they're very disconnected. COVID happened, everything is very digital, and I also think that urban farming is just an amazing way to bring community together. People talk about what plants they grow, what recipes they use. It becomes a cultural influence of sharing your recipes from my culture and yours. I always get so excited when people from different backgrounds tell me about a really cool food.
I think it's that you are really bonding with nature. That's an amazing feeling that I think everyone should have the possibility to try, because once you do it, you realize that you enjoy it a lot and that you can also do it in the cities. Now with urban farming, everyone...
In a city of glass and concrete, places like Sky Farm remind us that nature still has a place, not just around us, but within us. Urban farming doesn't just feed people, it heals isolation, it restores connection, and it gives us a way to reimagine how we live together and in tune with the earth.
You're listening to All the Best on FBI Radio 94.5. I'm Kwame Slusher. And that story was produced by Chuk Lam Lee, and the supervising producer was Thomas Phillips. All the Best would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands in which we make these stories, and pay our respects to elders past and present. All the Best is made at FBI Radio on Gadigal land, in association with Sin and 3RRR on Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung and Boon Wurrung lands, and 8CCC on Arrente and Warramungu lands. I'm Kwame Slusher. See you next week.